Thank you, everyone, for coming today. This is our last lecture of the year for Grand Rounds, and it is our largest named lecture of the year. It is our 32nd annual Castele lecture. I hold the Castele professorship through the Case Medical School, and Dr. Haga, sitting in the audience, also held the same professorship. Dr. Castele was a very good friend of our department and the School of Medicine. This is our agenda today. We're going to give out our annual awards, and then at the end, our lecturer will talk to us. This is Dr. Ted Castele. I knew him personally. He was a very close family friend of my husband's family. We actually went to multiple baseball games together, and I actually almost worked for Dr. Castele. He was a radiologist who worked in private practice in Cleveland and mainly was stationed at Lutheran Hospital. And in the last minute, Dr. Haga took me and signed me up here at UH. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be standing up here today. Dr. Castele was chief of staff at Lutheran Hospital, but he was also a U.S. Navy veteran of World War II and an Eagle Scout. He earned his medical degree here at Western Reserve when they were selective at picking their medical students before they became Case Western Reserve University, from what I've been told by my father-in-law. He went on to do residency here at UH. He made it very clear that his top priority was family. He had a very long marriage to his wife, Jean, of 63 years, and they had 7 children and 18 grandchildren the year he passed. He was best known as the nation's first local television doctor. If you grew up in Cleveland, you knew him as TV Ted, which he loved, that name. He liked to say that he made more than 1 billion house calls in that job in over 25 years, starting in 1975. The Academy of Medicine here in Cleveland picked Dr. Castele to try out for the job after Channel 5 accepted the group's proposal to put a physician on TV to put out information for the community. He first appeared weekly on the 11 p.m. news, and then the frequency of his segments increased over time. He was a trustee of Case Western Reserve University School of Medicine and spearheaded a 10-year, $300 million fundraising campaign. He was so busy at the School of Medicine, he actually had his own office there. He served on dozens of boards and was president or chairman of 16 community or medical organizations. In 1989, he became the first doctor in Ohio to receive the AMA's Benjamin Brush Award, named after the doctor who signed the Declaration of Independence for his contributions to the community in citizenship and public service. So I'm really honored to honor him today and have him be our representative of, and this is some pictures of him on TV. Our first award today is an achievement in radiology research by a medical student. Dr. Wei-Shin Chin is an alum of our residency program. He comes up every year to join us for the Castele lecture. So I welcome him today. I know he almost didn't make it here because his flight last night got canceled, but he got on the early flight today. And to present this award, I think Dr. Richard Barger is going to come up and present this award. Yes, you are. I think you might need to come around this way. Yeah. So he's just going to say a few words about the medical student that he nominated.
Hello, Rich Barger here. I remember Dr. Castele on TV growing up. I grew up in Lorraine, and I remember seeing him on TV. So the medical student recipient this year for this award is Lauren Fain, and she and I first met over Zoom, I think it was still in some of the heights of the COVID pandemic, and from early on she was interested in doing radiology research, and we got in contact along with Naveed, and She and I have been working pretty fervently for about 3 years now on a project of mine of integrating photography into medical imaging interpretation, whether it be procedures or infected diabetic feet and things like that. But her experience goes beyond that. She's really a triple threat in medicine. She does very well in the classroom. She excels in her studies. She excels outside of the medical school in giving back to her community and is involved in multiple projects, including working at the women's clinics. And then there's the research. She's been excellent in getting the projects together. She published a paper with Dr. Jordan in the radiation safety realm, and we just recently presented the photography research at AARS, which was just last week. And because of that, her hard work and everything that went together, we received a certificate of merit for that project. So, Lauren, welcome.
Thank you so much.
Maybe the slides. Yeah, come that way.
So we don't have words on her
We don't.
face.
Well, that's better. Yeah. Thank you. Nice. Let's take a picture. Excellent. Let's see one more. Just doing those this way. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Wei-Shin, were you able to meet Lauren yet?
Yes.
Good. Glad to hear it. And we don't always give this award away every year, but Dr. Wei-Shin Chen has also supported an award for a faculty member for medical student education. And this year it goes to Dr. Parvi Vasavada, who is one of our pediatric radiologists and has taken over education of the medical students rotating through our department. And she has done a great job at bringing students and exposing them earlier than their third year. So it's kind of a preclinical rotation, which I think a lot of departments don't have. So I just want to thank her for all of her efforts. I think it shows by looking at the classes that have graduated from Case Western with Naveed Faraji's efforts as well to increase the number of people interested in radiology. So please come up and accept your award. Thank you. Next, Dr. Hiro Fujita could not join us today, but every year he has supported a trainee in our MR research group. And this year, Dr. Dan Ma is going to introduce our awardee.
Hi, I'm Dema. I'm a assistant professor at BME, Biomedical Engineering Department and the Radiology Department. And today it is my pleasure to introduce my student, Walter Zhao. Walter is an MD PhD student from MSTP program, Medical Scientist Training Program at Case. I'm his PhD advisor. He's also co-mentored by Dr. Chaitra Badvi from Radiology Department. Walter joined my lab with already a very impressive background. He earned his Bachelor's of Science from Johns Hopkins University and a Master's of Science from UC San Francisco. And in my lab, he's working on developing novel MR imaging technology, machine learning technologies for clinical translation, especially brain tumor applications. And I think most importantly, Walter is the most self-driven and hardworking students I've ever had. He's a driving force to build the connection from research lab to multiple departments at hospitals, including radiology, neurosurgery, and radiation oncology. He built this perfect workflow, sending MR fingerprinting images to reading room and currently sending images to operation room to support our new research on image-guided treatment. So massive contribution, and this workflow has also contributed to lots of students' research projects, supported our large-scale brain tumor study, and also support our 2 NIH R01 grants. So I also want to mention that Walter is also actively involved in various leadership roles, including Vice President of Case Center for Imaging Research Trainee Council and President of Diagnostic and Intervention Radiology Interest Group. So with all these contributions and responsibilities, he's still a second-year PhD graduate student. So I think that what we can do is to celebrate his achievements so far and really support him for his bright future. So yeah, that's all I can say.
And Dr. Dan Ma and Dr. Chaitrabadve both won this award in the past. So it's like full circle. Congratulations. Thank you.
All right, I'm not sure where that's skills. Come forward. Oh, I just the team better.
Thank you. Congratulations. Thank you. So this year's Distinguished Alum of the Year is somebody I've known for many years. And we give this award out every year to someone who has many achievements both at work and sometimes outside of work with leadership in radiology and or biomedical engineering. This year's awardee is Dr. Dean Nakamoto. So Dean was a resident back in the day when I was a resident, and Dr. Haga was a young chair of the department. So we go way back. Dr. Nakamoto graduated from Case Western Reserve University as an undergraduate and went on to earn his MD at Case as well. He trained as a radiology resident at university hospitals in diagnostic radiology and did a body imaging fellowship. He then stayed on at UH for many years. During that time, he was director of pediatric interventional radiology and the division chief of abdominal imaging. He is currently the associate chief of the radiology services at VA Northeast Ohio Healthcare System here at Lewis Stokes, and was acting chief of the department in 2020 to 2021. He is a full professor in radiology and still participates in our DCAPT committee in our department. He also has a secondary appointment in urology at UH from 2011 to 2016. He has received multiple honors and awards, including the CIRREF Bracco Research Career Development Award, the SCVIR Young Investigator Award, and the University Hospital's Distinguished Physician Award. And he was in the inaugural class. And that award is given to physicians that are physicians, and were voted on by other physicians of the go-to person that they go to for certain things. And he was in the first class. So that was a huge honor. He is a fellow at AIUM and served as the chair of the CME committee and the president of the Interventional Intraoperative Ultrasound section. And in Röntgen Ray, he was chair of the GI imaging section of the scientific program committee. He is an excellent educator. He has taught multiple endocrine fellows, abdominal imaging fellows, and radiology residents. He participated in milestone evaluation tools for this, and he has numerous trainees and mentees in his path, including other alums of the year winner, Dr. Kristen DeStichter, and our own Nami Azar, Andrew Myers, Flamur Samaj, and Lee Zeisler. He has given numerous talks internationally and nationally, has published 12 book chapters, many peer-reviewed articles, and 1 patent. He's also a lot of fun to work with. He's not afraid to have fun when he goes on trips. Thank you, Dr. Azar, for these pictures. And he's also fun at work. I didn't share all of the dress-up pictures for those of you who know his past, but I thought these were the most appropriate. He loves to surf. He is also a 3rd-degree black belt in Kendo, which is Japanese fencing, and a 2nd degree in Iaido? Iaido. Thank you. The art of drawing, striking, and sheathing a katana. Don't want to meet him in a dark alley. He is also a 1st degree in Taihojutsu, which is a Japanese police self-defense. So please come up and accept your award. All right, you get 2 things. You get this.
Is that cake?
No. It's breakable too. All right.
I could go like this.
Take it out so you can see. All right, I'll hold. You take it out. That's black.
Oh, okay.
We're seeing if his hands are any good.
Yeah, I'm an IR. I should have good hands. I'm supposed to.
I'll take it. Oh, you got the marks.
Yeah.
Wow. Very good. Thank you.
I better take a picture with that. All right.
Hold this here like this. Okay. Got it?
Oh my gosh. You dropped that one big time.
Yeah, that's for sure.
Thank you. Congratulations. Back. Thanks. All right. Whoa, that was a close one. And these are just some of our other distinguished alumni of the year, including Dr. Ted Castele, Dr. Fujita, and Dr. Haga. And this is Dr. DeStichter, who we mentioned that Dean mentored. And then last year, Dr. Wei-Shin Chin was our alum of the year. So this brings me to Dr. Reed Omary, who is our invited Castele lecturer today. He is a lifelong learner. He thinks outside of the box. He's incredibly innovative, and I have learned probably not as much as I could have from him. He just stepped down as the chair of at Vanderbilt University. He went to Northwestern University for a 6-year honors program, which means 2 years of college and 4 years of medical school. So he was kind of like a Doogie Howser at some point in time. He got a master's program in epidemiology at the University of Virginia and completed a certificate of a 90-hour course for business for scientists and engineers at Northwestern University Kellogg School of Management. He did his residency at the University of Virginia, and at Northwestern University, he finished a fellowship in cardiovascular and interventional radiology. He's published over 230 peer-reviewed publications, 10 patents, 2 book chapters, and numerous national and international invited lectures and oral presentations. He is the Carol D. and Henry P. Professor in the Department of Radiology at Vanderbilt University, with 25 years of experience as a practicing interventional radiologist, NIH-funded scientist and educator. He served as the chair of radiology from 2012 to 2023, overseeing over 700 faculty, staff, and trainees. During that time, he was chair of the board of the Vanderbilt Medical Group, founded Vanderbilt University School of Medicine's Medical Innovators Development Program, and co-led Vanderbilt's academic strategic planning for its workforce of over 30,000 professionals. He has also served as the president of the Association of University Radiologists and president-elect of the SCARD, which is the Society of Chairs of Academic Radiology Departments. He is also a fellow in the AUR. He is an avid public speaker who enjoys promoting sustainability, equity, and innovation in healthcare for national organizations and for the public. He recently stepped down, as I said, as chair of radiology to pursue a sabbatical focused on climate change and sustainable healthcare. As a builder and strong communicator of the future, his goals are to motivate healthcare to decarbonize, to adopt sustainable practices, and to promote planetary health. He also recently launched The Green Leap, which is a blog for sustainable healthcare, which I'm hoping to hear more about today. We are very lucky to have Dr. Omary with us today. He's truly an innovative, out-of-the-box thinker, as I said before, and has changed the landscape of medicine in many ways. So welcome, Reed. Get your slides up here. I'm going to let you load that.
Yeah,
All
let me
right.
see.
Got it?
Oh, we got it. I don't want to jinx it. So thank you, Dr. Plecha. And it's a real honor to be here for this lecture. And I think hearing about Dr. Castele and his commitment to serving the public and stepping outside of the medical center to fill the needs of communities is really the basis of what I would like to talk about today. It's a real honor to be at this storied institution, and I've had so much fun meeting many of you today. I wanted just to start with a question, which is how many of you have kids or grandkids? Okay, so what we're going to discuss today, I would like to dedicate this lecture to them because fundamentally that's why we are here. We're trying to create a better world for them. And I'm going to walk through, we're all familiar with bench to bedside and this notion that you really want to support research because today's research is tomorrow's practice. I would like to extend that framework then to go from bedside to biosphere. And we're going to talk about that, and I'm going to give a lot of examples. For myself, my own, if you will, origin story to get interested in planetary health happened during lockdown. And I think, like probably many of you, I was scared out of my mind during lockdown. I was really like, what's going to happen here? I recognized at that time that what we do in healthcare is so vitally important to society beyond the actual care. Like, when was it okay for our kids to start playing sports, to go back to school? That was not care. No one was in those examples. They're not sick coming to us, but I think all of us had friends and societies and organizations asking us for guidance. And we didn't always have the randomized control double-blind study. We had to make really pragmatic decisions. So that's what I want to talk about today. And as Dr. Plecha mentioned, I've had the real privilege to step away this full year and just really explore. I have treated this as an innovation problem. I've interviewed over 300 people trying to understand their needs. And this is from CEOs to chefs, from poets to politicians to federal judges to everyone in healthcare. So I want to share some of my learnings with you. I do have a few disclosures, as you can see here. I'm going to start with a story that probably all of you are familiar with, but I wasn't aware of what the Cuyahoga was until I was a college student at Northwestern, and REM had this song called Cuyahoga. I don't know if anyone's familiar. I'm dating myself. Dr. Sunshine, I know you're a music fan, so you might remember that. Dr. Sunshine was visiting Northwestern once when I was early career faculty, and I was playing David Bowie in my office, and he walked by and he said, "Nice music." So he's got good taste. Cuyahoga has caught fire many times, and I think I thought it was just this one event, but when we go back and we look at the history, the pollution in the Cuyahoga would cause it to catch fire. And this is a concept, if you try to explain it to kids, like they do not understand. How can a body of water catch fire? Well, it can catch fire because there are oil slicks on it, and it's actually more solvents and oil than it is water. That's how it catches fire. And so in 1969, there was a fire. There were no pictures. It wasn't actually a big fire, but I need to hand it to the mayor, Carl Stokes. He was the first African-American mayor of a large American city. And instead of doing what most of our politicians now would do, which would be to deny it or blame others or act like it didn't happen, he held a news conference right on the Cuyahoga the day after and used this as a way to galvanize support for cleaning up the river. Like, how amazing is that? Then Time put this on the cover, and it developed, this is like pre-social media. Think about this. It went viral pre-social media. And his advocacy led to the establishment of the Environmental Protection Agency in 1970 and the Clean Water Act in 1972. And so I highlight that for Cleveland as an exemplar. You have taken something that on the surface is a crisis and turned it into an opportunity for good, not just for Cleveland, but for the entire United States. And I would like to emphasize this theme throughout. We have an incredible opportunity in Cleveland to make an enormous difference in terms now of the planet. So we started with a body of water that had caught fire. We know Lake Erie. If we go just about 275 miles around Lake Erie, we end up Crawford Lake. It's about 20 miles west of Toronto. Has anyone even heard of Crawford Lake? Okay, so Crawford Lake is this really unusual lake that the water doesn't move around. It just sits there. And so scientists have determined this is the perfect place to determine human impact on the planet Earth. And so what scientists have done is they bored into the bottom of this lake and pulled out sediment and then looked and said, hey, we can actually tell. This is like, think about it at aging like with tree rings. We can tell that humans came and changed the actual land beneath this lake starting in 1950. So it's sort of like if I wasn't, if I arrive home and I see a bunch of lacrosse gear all over the nice sofa or the previously nice sofa, I know my 12-year-old son has been present. The same thing is true here we know that humans were present and have actually changed the content of the land. And so the Anthropocene is a term, is the age of humans. Humans are a force of nature. And so it's not just the land. I want to show an example from the Kruger National Park in South Africa. There were scientists there that wanted to know, would wild animals be more afraid of the human voice, a roaring lion, or gunshots? And I'm going to leave you to be the judge of this.
My dad was a teacher, so I grew up in a home that's everything I knew was.
So 60 decibels. They played the human voice. When the animals came up, you see the giraffes running away. This leopard wants nothing to do with humans. Now we got a hyena.
I don't know that I started loving the law. I think they were things that I
It's
felt
incredible.
strongly about.
Zebras run away. Some sort of antelope.
I don't know that I started loving the law.
Because we have 11 official languages, English is that one that everybody speaks.
So I wanted to highlight this. When we're a force of nature, like our presence on this planet has affected every other living species. When we think about diversity, let's make room in our minds for non-human species. Let's start thinking more broadly, and that's what I want to share. So the World Health Organization has deemed climate change, and we're going to go over some terms here, as the single biggest threat facing humanity. So you might go, yeah, I don't know about this. Well, The Economist, okay? The Economist a couple weeks ago, the next housing disaster. This isn't the bubble from overpriced homes or inflation. The next housing disaster, according to The Economist, is actually all the destruction that's going to happen in homes in places at high climate risk. So if any of you is thinking about, or you have property down in Miami, like this is what it's referring to. And so think about this. A lot of insurers are no longer offering new insurance in California, Louisiana, Florida, Texas. So you may think, well, you know what, this doesn't affect me, but it actually does. And the thing is, if you're not even living in one of those places, our insurance rates are going to go up. Science magazine, once a month, cover articles, something to do with the planet and climate. This was just a Sunday. I pulled out the New York Times book review. This is Climate on the Mind. It's like, so I'm not making this up. 25% of college students who are graduating view climate change as the #1 problem facing society. Last year, and I update this slide every year, so we'll see what I get to update this coming year. So we had Hawaii, the unfortunate blaze. New York was apocalyptic. These are from Canadian wildfires. And I don't know, did those wildfires come down? Did the smoke affect Cleveland? Okay, so I live in Nashville. This was like all of a sudden reminding me of COVID, where what happened in one part of the world affected us. So I've had asthma since being a kid. My lacrosse playing youngest son has had asthma since he was 5, admitted to the hospital as a 5-year-old. His twin sister never had asthma until June of 2023, when the air quality was awful. So when we think about this, it's not just affecting like those other people, it's affecting every one of us. And even the temperatures in the Florida ocean were like near 100 degrees. It was crazy. So climate change targets the vulnerable first. So the people who have the least amount of resources are the ones who unfortunately are going to feel the main effects first. And in the United States, that is really dependent upon where you live. So here's a climate vulnerability index, which I've got I just plug this in, and you can see where are the most vulnerable areas in this nation. Well, they're in the South and on the coasts. Louisiana has 5 of the 10 most vulnerable climate impact areas in the nation. So when we think about disparities, look at this map. And when we think about disparities, you can pretty much take a lot of this and put on mortality rates, diabetes, lack of access to care, It's remarkably similar. But we can actually look much more locally. Let's look at Cleveland. I've never lived here, so I don't know all the neighborhoods. I have visited before, and I understand that Shaker Heights is nice. But if I hadn't visited before, I would have guessed that Shaker Heights is nice, because you can see here, it's got pretty low climate risk. I've never been to this part. I don't know, it's called Newburgh Heights or right above Newburgh Heights. I've never been there. I don't even know what it's called. But you see the climate, the vulnerability risk here is like 95th percentile. So the very patients that we are serving are affected by climate change and by the pollution that we emit. Because I can assure you, there is no incinerator for all our medical waste that is located in Shaker Heights. So where you live has a huge impact on health outcomes. And I was talking before about my daughter. There's also these other, with the warmer weather, with the cold, that's not as good. There's these tick-borne diseases. And so it's called the Lone Star tick. Has anyone been bitten by a Lone Star tick? It has this little white thing in the center. Okay, so one of our faculty bitten by this. This was about 3 years ago. Really terrible immune response. Had to avoid all mammalian meats for a year and a half. There is another radiology chair who is a dean somewhere who actually had an anaphylactic attack to this and had to end up in the ICU. This is not theoretical, and I show this to you because I love the outdoors. And I got this picture from a dermatologist who's my dermatologist, who uses my Lone Star tick picture. This is me. I got bitten by this damn thing, and I got to tell you, it was like 6 months. It was really, so once again, when we think about this, it's not just the other. Who is vulnerable? Everyone here who has a child, children are vulnerable. Anyone over 65, vulnerable. If you have asthma, you're vulnerable. If you have a chronic health condition, if you have long COVID, all of these place us at bigger risk. So what's the inciting event for climate change? It's fossil fuels. So about 75% of emissions have come from fossil fuels. And not unlike smoking, we have become addicted. And I'm not saying that fossil fuels aren't needed, but I want to say clearly a lot of the playbook that big oil is using to counter climate change is to seed doubt. And where did they get that playbook? Big tobacco. There's a great book called Merchants of Doubt that I highly recommend that actually follows this. So let's recognize that we have an ongoing health problem. There's about 7 million people who die each year that are attributed worldwide to fossil fuels. 7 million people. That's more than died in COVID in the first 2 years. Just to put some numbers around this. So the concept here is planetary health. And you're like, what is planetary health? Okay, planetary health, I'll just say really simply, consider the planet as a patient. Instead of fighting against climate change, fight for the planet's health. Climate change is a very divisive word, and if you use it where I live in Tennessee, instant turnoff. So I think using the word planetary health is there's just less baggage associated with it. And fundamentally, the health of the planet affects the health of patients. And I want to sort of talk about that. Planetary health differs than global health. Global health is based on humans. It's based on nation states. Planetary health considers humans as one of 2 million species, that we live in a symbiotic relationship with those species and with actually the geochemical processes of the planet. What happens in one area can affect another. So when we think about it and we look at these numbers, a lot of so climate change is one of the conditions that is affecting the health of the planet. It's the dominant one, but not the only one. In 2015, the Paris Agreement said, let's limit the rise in average global temperature 1.52 degrees centigrade. This doesn't sound like a lot. In fact, at RSNA, a couple years ago, I asked 5 people what this was in Fahrenheit. None of them knew. Like, actually, my kids knew more than radiologists. I'll just say so. It's 2.7 to 3.6 degrees Fahrenheit. Once again, doesn't sound like a lot, but as we escalate this, it translates into more and more worse events that don't necessarily progress linearly. In the United States, healthcare contributes 8.5% of overall greenhouse gases. That's more than aviation and shipping combined. I know that some of you have probably thought about, oh, should I not hop on an airplane because of the carbon footprint? The carbon footprint concept was actually promulgated by British Petroleum. I'm not making this up. British Petroleum hired a PR agency and said, how do we shift the burden from us and make people feel guilty? I don't know this for sure, but I think my mother might have been in that PR group because she has made me feel guilty my whole life. So there's a lot of, when we think about why healthcare, why should we be involved? Physicians, the most trusted profession in the world. Scientists, number 2. Educators, number 3. That's everyone here. So we're actually natural communicators, and I think we're better at communicating than a lot of the climate scientists are.
Yeah, I have a question. It's interesting when you look at the fossil fuels in the planet Earth. China puts in coal, 5 or 6 huge coal areas. There really is polluting the nation. Now the other point is the natural gas is a much better fossil fuel that does not produce all kinds of smoke and terrible things. So we ought to be shutting down the coal plants.
100% agree. I'm with you. So we did at Vanderbilt in conjunction with Phillips, and it was Kathy Thiel, who's a life cycle analysis expert. We looked at our emissions over the diagnostic radiology department over a 10-year cycle, and we found that the half of the emissions in a diagnostic radiology department come from MRI, a quarter from CT. And this is going all the way back to the production of the scanners. So it's like if you buy a EV, it's not looking just about the incremental use of electricity versus fossil fuels. It's looking at the actual production of the EV. There was a paper published last month, actually during Earth Week, from an international group of radiologists. First author, a medical student. Go medical students here, which has provided, and there's a link here, over 25 different strategies we can take in radiology. I do want to end by focusing on 3 asks for you that takes into account the patients. So we've got the bedside, communities, and the biosphere we talked about earlier. The first ask, so at the bedside, is for us to start thinking less about our footprints and instead think more about our handprints. And what I mean by that is actually think about what we can do at the bedside that might offer returns on many levels. I think of sustainability as more than just reducing waste for the environment. Sustainability is also trying to maintain our workforce. Dr. Sunshine and I talked about that earlier today. And also the financial implications of running really complex health systems with margins that are dwindling, dwindling, dwindling. Mass General Brigham and UPMC both have negative margins right now. So there's a lot of difficulty. If we can't keep our hospitals open, we can't serve the patients that need us. This is especially true in rural areas. And I know Ohio has a number of rural areas, so maybe you're like Tennessee, where a number of our hospitals are threatened to close in those areas. So I'm gonna give you a really practical convert from single to multi-use CT contrast. This was a study one of our residents did at Vanderbilt. Where are you, or have you all converted? Okay, good. You know, it's not every academic medical center has. And this is not only reducing pharmaceutical and plastic waste. We did this study, 6 CT scanners, about $500,000 in savings per year. We have 19 CT scanners at Vanderbilt. So this is, you know, essentially, this is like at Vanderbilt, it's $1.5 million a year that we were just throwing away. I talked to somebody at UC Davis. Their nurses in one unit did a test. Those plastic containers, when patients get admitted, you know, it comes in this funny like plastic box, and it's got toothpaste that nobody uses and these funny socks so 90% of those get thrown away. So they looked at that, and one nursing unit, so out of 30 in this hospital at UC Davis, one nursing unit, $7,000 a month, just thrown away. So we have opportunities to actually meet the needs of our patients and start just wasting money, because we need all the funds we can access so we can maintain access for our patients. Which brings me to the second point. So we shift from the bedside to communities. We really need to link people and the planet. And, you know, we had at Vanderbilt 150 goal equity plan, comprehensive equity plan. There wasn't one of those 150 goals that looked at trying to reduce our emissions or reduce our waste that we were spewing forth in our local communities that could least tolerate it. This is a blind spot, unfortunately, for many people involved in health equity. And we are going to go through a green transition. It'll be slower than is needed. As we do the green transition, we have the opportunity to use that transition to try and benefit the communities that have been left behind. So I view this transition as a new lever where we can directly affect those neighborhoods that have really been forgotten, or unfortunately, I'll say in the Nashville area, redlined. I don't know how much of that happened here in Cleveland. So I'm going to give 2 examples. One, Dr. Pletcha shared with me the UH Food for Life market. So patients can get a referral where they go to a pantry and they're like 5 of these and get free food for a week, meet with a dietitian to understand how to eat more healthy. This is fantastic. Rush University has actually a food pantry that's right in their emergency department. And so this concept of food as medicine, we know there's a lot of food insecurity. 30 to 40% of food is wasted right now. It's just pitched. So we have an opportunity to think from a planetary perspective how we can address food insecurity to benefit the communities that we serve. Another example, Boston Medical Center has used, so the Inflation Reduction Act offered $380 billion for the green transition. So they took some of that money and they built a new hospital, put solar panels on the roof, and then physicians can write prescriptions for $50 a month energy credits that go to their patients. So they use the renewable energy from the roof, they work it through the utility, and the patients get $50 a month of free energy. Third, so we switched to the concept of the biosphere, which is where in the planet life is. And I'd ask us to think up, so if we shift from thinking about human health only to also thinking about community health and the health of the planet. Back in 2009, this concept, think about it as a dashboard. There are 9 planetary boundaries where climate change is just one of them. Biodiversity is another. These novel entities is like plastics. Also thinking about the ozone. I think of the ozone as like the protective skin. And so there are 6 of these 9 boundaries have already been transgressed. So if we think as a planet, we have an opportunity to embed that thinking in all that we do. The United Nations has their version of planetary boundaries is called the Sustainable Development Goals. There are 17 of these. These were formed in 2015, and they're monitored with outcomes every year. If you are involved in equity work and you're not familiar with the Sustainable Development Goals, please, please, please become aware of this. When we design our medical school courses, you can actually say which goals these direct. When we submit papers, we have the opportunity, I predict in 5 years, we're going to see journals saying which of these goals are being addressed. So what next? We've talked about a lot today. We've talked about the future. We've talked about the past. So I started off discussing the role that Cleveland had in changing public policy. And I'd really like to emphasize that right now we're at the same point. This is like the Cuyahoga. And we have the opportunity here in Cleveland. Look how Cleveland has transformed itself into this vibrant arts culture, an incredible healthcare destination. And when I was checking in the hotel room, the receptionist told me how proud she was to live in Cleveland. And so we have the opportunity here to think about, can we extend that aura of Cleveland to the surrounding areas, and can we convert what was the Rust Belt into what I would call the Green Belt? And this isn't just dreamy thinking. We have so much we can learn from Cleveland, and it's happening right now. I recently learned from Dr. Pletcha about your current mayor, who's a Case Western grad, correct? Okay, well maybe Case West. So we have a Case Western grad who is really young, who actually is now chair. There's like 750 mayors across the United States that are called the climate mayors, and they share their policies, they share their outcomes, they come together. Your mayor is the chair of all the mayors in this. So you have so much to be proud about in Cleveland. And I'd ask you to think about taking all your learns from the Cuyahoga and apply it to the area of planetary health. So thank you, everyone. Dr. Pletcha.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your Green Leaf blog?
So as I embarked on this learning journey, I realized there was a need to amplify voices and around sustainable healthcare. And so I'd never had a blog. I'd never done a website before. So it took me like forever to figure out how to use WordPress. And if anybody's good at using WordPress, please let me know, because I've hit a roadblock. So I just started to write and put my thoughts out to try to build community. And I've met a lot of really interesting people. And I actually have, so if any of you would like to contribute, scientists, if you want to talk about greening your lab, I'd love that. So I've invited, anyone can contribute. And so last week, I had a high school All-American swimmer from Pittsburgh. So he was the son of a radiologist, and he started a green lawn mowing business in Pittsburgh. And he's grown so much that he, first of all, he's grown physically, so he's become an All-American. And second, he's grown so much now as he's hired 6 people. And so he uses these these electric mowers and trimmers from some company called Works, W-O-R-X. So now they contacted me, and they actually want to sponsor him. So it's just a great example of amplifying those voices. And honestly, we need to come together and learn and share. This is the notion of what we do in academic medicine. We discover, learn, and share.
Any other questions or comments?
Okay, right there.
So, as an interventional radiologist yourself, and I'm just thinking about like procedural kits, and it's my experience that occasionally we have excess materials in the kits that we're not always using. Is that something that you've explored at your institution, or any?
Yeah, so there's a lot of opportunity. You know how the way to say something, if it's not going well, you can actually say it's an opportunity-rich environment. IR is an opportunity-rich environment, and there's actually lots of savings that can occur. Any other questions? Dr. Sunshine.
So Reed, pre-COVID, I have the sense 5-7 years ago that many institutions were starting down a path to have things like sustainability officers. And much like, I hate to say it, the pendulum seems to swing in officers for diversity, equity, and inclusion, we lost momentum and susceptibility in large healthcare and corporate spaces. Do you have any sense of why we lost that momentum, and probably more importantly, how we should get it back?
Yeah, and you've hit on something, and so that's called different things, like woke lash is now a term for it, or when focused on the environment, the green lash. So it was attacked, and it was attacked from what was called ESG, so environmental social governance. And the BlackRock, which was the largest investing group in the world, their leader was really pushing ESG, and the antibodies came out and attacked, and then it became so the single most polarizing issue in the United States. So if I know your perspective on climate change with 93% accuracy, I can predict how you're likely going to vote. So it became very partisanized. It wasn't that way in the early 2000s. So we have this pendulum, as you said, but the language really matters. And language on either any side of the political spectrum will can potentially tag you from having one type of ideology. So I have a friend of mine who's on the board of a utility, and so he was talking about trying to have them become greener, and he then intentionally used the word personal responsibility. And one of the board members said, "Now you are speaking my language." If he came out and said justice, be dead in the water. We have to use words that tailor to our audience. And one of the learns of COVID is we don't use the same strategy for everyone. It matters. We need to tailor, customize, just like precision medicine. We need to do precision communication. Yes?
So you're speaking about as a healthcare team, how we can make a difference. Are you saying that we focus wherever we can, or should we be focusing our actions on the healthcare environment we're working in, or on the target audiences, if you will, that we're interacting with every day? So there's the patients or people outside the healthcare system.
So the number one thing we have to do and always do is focus on our patients. I am not at all saying we stop focusing on our patients. But what I am saying is that we have, when we take care of the climate, that's actually taking care of lots of patients. There's 8 billion people, a lot. But it's not a one-to-one. We can't do, so we're in this, I mean, think about with COVID, how much denialism that there was with COVID, and that, like, you could die from it. Now, asking people to think about something that's gonna affect their kids, like, and then you come down to belief systems that, like, well, why would I care about something 30 years from now, even if it affects my kids? They'll figure it out. So what I'm advocating for is that we embed that thinking in our operations. I'm not asking it to be an add-on. The last thing we should do, the very last thing we should do, is come up with mandatory training. Oh my goodness, I can't think of a more way to kill something useful than, like, I had to take mandatory training like 2 months ago. I'm not making this. I had to take mandatory training for being respectful to others, and of course, I'm like, this is disrespectful of me. So I'm trying to, like, we just need to. So at home we make decisions. We may recycle, we may compost, we may buy less plastic laden. We also make decisions at work. Just try to no longer think about it as home and work, and try to think about it as integrated.
Thank you for a wonderful lecture. The amount of food that is wasted, and energy and growing food that just winds up in the garbage can. I wonder, by analogy, if you could talk about appropriate use of radiology. Number of examinations that are performed that may be unnecessary, particularly in the context of partners in UPMC and other institutions perhaps having some incentive to not reduce the amount of imaging that's performed.
Yeah, and so the greenest healthcare is the healthcare that we avoid, that isn't needed. Like, that's right away. And how much did the clinical decision support? Like, I can't even remember how many times I thought we were going to have to do this. And I don't know, Dr. Sunshine, do you have, like, and then when is it PAMA, and then when was it going to hit? And so we were always on this. We were going to do clinical decision support. And then I think it's died. I don't. Okay, I think so. So in a weird way, can we just resurrect it? I I'm getting a nod here, it's complicated. It's complicated, but we're so overworked in radiology right now. We don't have enough technologists. We don't have enough radiologists. So anything we can do to reduce the care that isn't needed, and that's where sustainability is much more than just environmental. It's how do we sustain our workforce? And when we have now the boomers really need our care, and as the boomers retire, there's more boomers that need our care, and we don't have a pipeline to fill that. So who's going to take care of them? Oh, and then let's use AI. Well, okay, now we have to adopt. It's really hard to adopt new processes. So it's complicated. And that's what I think makes it, for me, what I really like about this is I'm starting something in the area of planetary health that I will never see the end of. It'll never, it's an infinite game. And actually, that's what draws me to it. I think nuclear energy is frankly, we need nuclear energy. So I wish we could have more nuclear energy because yeah. But nuclear power plants are a great way to invest a ton of money and be delayed. It's even worse than epic transitions. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a question. How can we make sure we see a few steps ahead, not just the one in front of us? For example, thinking of doing consents in paper is worse than having electronic consent, but when there are reports showing that the amount of energy that goes into cloud space and electronic documents is even worse than the impact of the paper. So how can we make sure it's not just short-sighted?
Well, yeah. So this is an amazing. If you're early career faculty, or if you're a resident, or you're a medical student, oh my goodness, you can build a whole career around assessing this. And the data centers are exploding. A lot of them are actually growing in the area where my sister and mother live, outside of Washington D.C. in the exurbs. So these data centers are now energy hogs, even more than our MRI scanners. So we have a lot of opportunity. The RSNA has a emerging grant fund to study this. So $100,000. Those grants are being reviewed on Thursday of this week. Somehow I know that. But so it's a real opportunity, just like thinking about equity and thinking 2 steps, 3 steps ahead. All right, I heard that beep, and I think that's the end. So thank you, everyone.